Hey everybody, I'm sitting here in the truck, got the excavator on the back, but I'm not allowed to drive in Salt Lake City metro area until after 9 o'clock a.m. because I'm over 10 feet wide. So I'm just sitting here on the side of the road. I'm about 10 minutes away from the highway, so I just gotta wait here until it's about 10 of 9, and then I'll head that way and head up into Salt Lake and drop this thing off. So while I'm sitting here, I just thought I would talk about why I didn't vote for Donald Trump. And I talked about this a little bit in my video with Mike and the video that I did with Mike and Charles a couple days ago. I do consider Trump to be a little bit better than Biden. And so to a lot of people, that's a good enough reason to just vote for him because, you know, your vote isn't a purity test. Your vote is vote for who's not going to cause as many problems. I used to think that way, but I don't think that way anymore because now I look at voting for someone who's shit as supporting the problem. You're basically enabling the status quo by voting for someone who's terrible. And I'm not a purist. I campaigned for Tulsi Gabbard. We definitely don't agree on everything. I would probably vote for Rand Paul in 2024 if he won the Republican nomination, and there's some things he's done that have pissed me off, and I don't know, I'd vote for someone like Mike Lee, someone like Mike Gravel I might vote for. I mean, you don't have to be 100% representative of my views. That's not what I'm looking for. But let's look at Trump and who he is and see how similar he is to me. And it's not very close. I will tell you that Trump and Biden are much more similar to each other than either one of them is to me. So to me, it's it's a marginal difference between two horrible options. It's not that one is kind of bad and the other one's terrible. They're both absolutely terrible, and one just has a tiny bit of an edge on the other. So they're both war criminals, right? Trump vetoed the legislation led by Bernie Sanders to stop the blockade in Yemen. It's not like he wasn't supportive enough of it or something, or he, wasn't bold enough against it. Like, he straight up vetoed the legislation to stop the blockade in Yemen. That's evil. I mean, that makes you a war criminal. The airstrike on Soleimani in January of this year was incredibly stupid and reckless and could have started a hot war, as Tulsi Gabbard said. That was really, really dumb, and it proved that he has, he's not the restrained person who's holding back and trying not to have America's foreign policy influence on the rest of the world. That was made incredibly obvious through that move. He has higher deficits than any president in U.S. history has had, and it's not like they were for good things. I mean, he's doubled the military budget. He has given a giant corporate bailout to the super rich. It's not like he was running deficits to even help the common man. That's not what was going on. He's run huge deficits to help the military-industrial complex, Wall Street, and the super rich. He did sign the First Step Act, but he signed it. I mean, he wasn't advocating for it. I mean, he didn't veto it, so I'll give him that. But he's not been pushing for criminal justice reform while he's been president. I mean, that's ridiculous to say that. he's reauthorized the Patriot Act. This last time it didn't pass Congress, and so he didn't get to sign it again. But how does that credit go to him? That's because Congress. I think the House of Representatives might have actually not passed it, so they delayed the vote or something back in, I think it was in April. But that credit doesn't go to Trump. So he's a proponent of the national security state. He's a proponent of corporate welfare. He's a proponent of the military-industrial complex. There's very, very little that I have in common with him at all. And obviously, I have even less in common with Joe Biden, but that doesn't mean that Trump deserves my vote. To me, it's like you're hiring a babysitter, and you've got two people who have applied for the job, and one of them is a child rapist murderer who robbed a bank, and the second one is a child rapist murderer who hasn't robbed a bank. And you say, okay, well, I'm not hiring either of you. And then your wife flips out at you and says, why didn't you hire the one who didn't rob the bank? I mean, you can see how ridiculous of a question that is. Why would you choose either? They're both horrible options, and the differences are so marginal. I think that the scariest thing about Biden being president is that the media is mostly going to be on his side, where at least while Trump has been president, the media in large part has been in opposition to him, and I think that's healthy when the media is against the administration. We've already seen what it's like when the media is on the administration's side when Obama was president. So, that's going to suck. I think censorship is going to be less obvious, and people are going to kind of roll over and fall asleep over it. I'm worried about that. I'm not convinced that Biden's going to be worse on foreign policy than Trump. Maybe I'm ignorant, but I'm just not convinced of that. He might be. He could be the worst president of my lifetime on foreign policy. Biden could be, and the people he's drafting right now for his cabinet are absolutely horrible. So he could be an absolute disaster. But let's not forget who Trump has around him. He had Esper, he had John Bolton, he has Mike Pompeo, he has Rudy Giuliani. These are not anti-war people by any stretch, and they're not even soft on foreign interventions. We haven't gotten into a new declared war or more boots on the ground in another country while he's been president, but we've dropped more bombs than we did under Obama. We've racked the disaster in Yemen up to a 10. We've airstriked Syria. He put a ton of troops into the Middle East while he was president, and then he withdrew some of them, and now we're back to about the same number of troops that were in there when he first came into office. That's not an upgrade. I mean, I don't know how you can say that. You're not being intellectually honest. So some people say if Biden's president will be at war with Russia, will be at war with North Korea. Well, I don't know if that's true. I mean, that's a pretty extreme statement. And I think people are, they're setting the stage for Biden to impress people because they're assuming that he's going to be so much worse than he might be. And as I've said, he could be this bad, but it's kind of unlikely that we're going to be at war with North Korea and with Russia and with Iran. I don't know. I'm not convinced that will be the case under a Biden administration. And if people are setting the bar that low, he's likely to do better than the bar they're setting, and people will be impressed with how he's done instead of unimpressed. I think it's important to point out his record and how terrible he's been and how he will continue the same policies, but acting like he's going to start World War III and get us into hot wars with major superpowers, I don't know that that's honest or that will happen. I think it's kind of unlikely. I think that we can make a lot of money off of being at war in the Middle East with proxy wars. We're not going to benefit from a war with Russia. That's ridiculous. I mean, I guess some people might, but as a whole, we're certainly not going to benefit the same way it's easy to while we're engaged in these proxy wars in the Middle East. So, yeah, that's why I didn't vote for him. I mean, I didn't think that he is a not evil against evil Biden. Like, they're both evil, and there's marginal differences that I agree with Trump more. There's very few things I would agree with Biden on that I don't agree with Trump on. I'd say maybe immigration. I'm more like Biden, but Biden, he wants open borders with a welfare state, sort of, or not open borders, but more relaxed borders with the welfare state. I think the problem is the welfare state. I think I sort of believe in basically open borders and eliminating the welfare state, but that's, neither of them are that way. On trade, I think Trump's been a disaster. He hasn't, I guess on the Second Amendment, Trump is going to have been better than Biden will try to be, but the Republicans will actually stand up to Biden for some reason, where they haven't with Trump. Like, Trump has passed more gun control laws than got through with Obama, and for the most part, the Republicans just rolled over and took it. If Biden tries to pass an assault weapons ban or a high-capacity magazine ban, like, the Republicans are going to give him all sorts of hell, and they gain seats in the House. They're likely to keep the majority in the Senate. So it's not a fear-mongering point that I buy into. And also, even though I think the Democrats would pass some basic gun control laws if they could, the idea that they are going to take all of our guns away is ridiculous, because, first of all, they couldn't. But then second of all, if they succeed in doing that, then there goes all their fundraising, for scaring the soccer moms into voting for them. They want us to have our guns so that they can keep talking about how they can take them away. I mean, that's kind of how all these special interests and lobbyists work. Like, they want to have opposition so that they can make money off of scaring you of their opposition. So it's not something I really buy into. But I honestly did consider voting for Trump the end of last year, when it was obvious that Tulsi wasn't going to make it anywhere, and even before the Libertarians threw their hat in the ring, I knew that it was very unlikely that they'd have a candidate who could win. So I actually did think about it, and then the Soleimani airstrike happened, and that was an immediate dampening on that thought. And then the CARES Act happened, and after the CARES Act, I was just like, there's no way. I just can't vote for him. He's so antithetical to everything I stand for. So then it was pretty much just the Libertarian Party that I was looking at, and, maybe Jesse Ventura, if he had decided to run. I would have looked at him. But yeah, there was no good reason to vote for Trump. I think there are things you can say that can be defended as to why you voted for Trump or even Biden. Like, there are some arguments I can understand for why you would vote for either of them. But I don't consider it voter shaming to pick apart your arguments. If you're going to say, I voted for Trump because he's ending the wars, I'm going to call you out on that, because he's not ending the wars. If you say, I'm voting for Biden because he stands for criminal justice reform, I'm going to dismantle that argument too. It's not voter shaming to discredit the argument you make for why you voted for someone, because if someone does not stand for the things that you say that you voted for them because of, then I'm gonna tear it apart. And a lot of people are getting angry at me for doing that. A lot of people are saying that I'm a purist, or that I need to let go of the purity tests. And I'm not into purity tests, but if you're a war criminal, if you want to lock people up in cages for smoking certain drugs, if you want to separate children from their parents at the border, if you want to bail out the super rich and Wall Street, I'm not interested in you. And to me, that's not that ridiculous of a demand, but apparently it is now. I mean, it's so hard to find anyone who doesn't meet those, who doesn't meet that criteria. Tulsi was the only Democrat who really met the criteria for me. She was the only one who wasn't already involved in war crimes. You know, Bernie Sanders, everyone points to Bernie Sanders. He voted to bomb Kosovo. He voted for the Iraqi Liberation Act. He's voted for sanctions on Iran, Syria, Libya, Russia. I mean, he's just a joke. Like, stop saying that he's a peace candidate. He was not. He was absolutely horrible. He was, diet Hillary Clinton. I mean, saying that Bernie was a peace candidate is like saying that Trump has been an anti-war president. It's just so unmoored from reality. Stop saying that. He was not. Tulsi was the only Democrat. The only Republican in the last 4 years to run who was anti-war was Rand Paul. Nobody else. Donald Trump in 2016 gave lip service to the idea, but if you're still giving him credit for it, you're not living on planet Earth. You haven't been watching what he's been doing. So, there was no good reason to vote for him, in my mind. And as I said, there are some arguments that I'll let fly for why people voted for him. And the same for Biden. There's some arguments that I'll let fly that I still disagree with them both, but I will let those arguments fly. But if you're going to make a stupid argument that's not anchored in reality, I am going to call you out on it. So there you go. Those are my thoughts on that. Comment below on what you think. If you voted for Trump or Biden, tell me why. Maybe you have a good reason. As I said, there are a couple reasons I've heard that I can understand, even though I disagree with, but most of them are they're not dealing with reality. So, just let me know in the comments, guys. Take care of yourselves, take care of each other. I'll catch you on the next live stream or the next episode. I will be going on the Libertarians podcast tonight at some point. I don't know when exactly yet. And I might be going on Israel Daily's show, Big Talk, Little Talk. He's switched conservative from progressive in the last couple months. So I might be going on there. So check into those two venues and you might see me there. But I'll catch you guys later. Peace.